This is Dr. B.J. Baker, Dr. Apostle B.J. Baker, Baker J. Baker, whatever, all of those names. And I want to welcome you to the Still Telling It Like It Is program. All of my programs have something to do with Tell It Like It Is because that's who I am and that's what it is that I believe. The subject that we're talking about for the next whatever number of weeks it is suicide. Suicide in believers, suicide in Christians, suicide in young people, and different groups of people. And I am so honored to have not prophetess, but prophet Randi McGee and Apostle Marshall McGee. He's also a chaplain, and she's also a coach, a life coach, and other things. And I want to welcome my guest to the program. Hi, how are you guys?
Hi there.
Hi, Dr. Baker.
Hello.
Great.
Greetings.
Okay, he's going to put you up on the screen in just a minute so that people can see you. They can see I'm not talking to the wind.
Okay.
Okay, well, we're waiting for Joe Henry to put you up there. There you go. Okay.
Hi. Hello.
Remember on the last program, we were talking about, I mentioned one of the things that was confrontation. Randi had talked about the fact that this is a spirit, that what she was dealing with was what my granddaughter dealt with was a spirit that was speaking wrong things to her. And I know that my sister, I know that the things were being spoken wrong to her, but we're talking about 8 year, and you had mentioned that one of your grandchildren that was 6 years old or 8 years old or whatever it is. And we had just talked about how it's growing in young people. And a lot of these young people are people that their parents are believers. I mean, they grow up in this so-called Christian home and all of this, but are they equipped to confront these things? Everybody can't confront a demonic spirit. Everybody can't do these things. So, we have a plethora of ways to go. So, in this segment of our program, why don't you go ahead and start to talk about the parts that you want to talk about right now?
Can I just introduce this definition just for, because sometimes I really like to define things, and even though most of our listeners probably know this, but I just want to read it anyway, perhaps so people can really be clear. Just defining what suicide is, since that's our main subject, and we're going to talk about subjects around that. And suicide means ending your own life. It is sometimes a way for people to escape pain or suffering. When someone ends their own life, we say that they died by suicide. A suicide attempt means that someone tried to end their life, but they did not die. And so just kind of wanted to, again, just put the definition out there again. As we get into this, we talked about confrontation, uh, and I think we can go a lot of different ways. What do you do if you're thinking about it? I think my wife said in the last program that it starts with thoughts. So maybe that might be a good place to start. What do you do, or what do those maybe first? What do those thoughts look like,
Okay.
and then what do you do with those thoughts?
Okay. When I was working with CARES, we took a
What
class.
cares?
CARES is a residential home for girls. And we had to go through a trauma workshop. And so at this trauma workshop, the instructor, we put on headphones so that we could hear, because some people were dealing with mental health issues or voices talking to them. So, we can say, okay, voices are talking, but what do those voices sound like? So we put on these headsets so they could show us and give us an idea of what this would sound like to the person receiving these thoughts. So as I put on the headset, you could hear multiple voices saying, you're no good. Why don't you just kill yourself? Nobody likes you.
Wow.
You're a misfit. You're a loser. So, and you've been being bombarded with these many thoughts. So that gave us an idea, because I never knew, but we have thoughts coming to us all the time, but never to the point of making us depressed or feeling like we want to kill ourselves. So just being able to, go through that workshop, it really opened my eyes to know that people are dealing with this reality. This is a reality for them. And so, with these many thoughts coming, and I think you said something, if you're not a believer and you don't know what to do with this, you don't know how to get in the word, what do you do? And so that's the question. And that's where the church needs to come in to teach people what they can do. Because when we cast, the Bible tells us to cast down, first you cast down that thought. And actually what you're doing, you're replacing that thought with an affirmation, or with something that is the opposite of what it's telling you. And so if you can do that, because we all talk to ourselves, we encourage ourselves. And so if we could cast that thought down and realize that this thought is not a part of me, but this thought is trying to destroy me. But I think the key is getting around other people that can be a support when those times come.
Okay, here, let me throw this at you for a moment. We are part of Love and Unity. You've pastored congregations, and so have I. Started groups of things, and I've been in my field for a lot of years. And but even in the so-called church, we have people that maybe are not suicidal, even homicidal, but they don't seem to be able to get their thoughts together to even
Yeah,
think right about anything now. And so what I'm the reason I really believe that this part came is that I'm looking at people. I taught, as I said, I taught last week or whatever it was, on casting, taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. But how many people are we even dealing with now? I'm talking about a fivefold ministry. I'm not talking about the ascension gifts, because once I'm not the different. I think Marshall was the one that we talked about this. The ascension gifts. I mean, we're already seated in our place, so we're not thinking on that level. That's a spiritual level. But down here, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers are still dealing with that soulish realm, to where their thoughts are not even right. So when they get to this, they're not even able to help the people, because when they get to it, they're dealing with so much depression and so much shame and so much stuff. And then I'm throwing this one out there too, which I know we won't be able to get to all of it. People feeling guilty because somebody killed themselves.
Yeah. Wow.
I should have been able to stop them, but you can't. I mean, this is something that we have to deal with people, because nobody can stop me from killing me.
No.
Kill you during sickness. I had the opportunity when I was in the hospital, all of these different kinds of things. So at any rate, I'm throwing that out there, and I'm going to mute so that you guys can.
Yeah, you did. You threw out a lot. You know that, right? I think that can I just throw this in, because we're talking specifically, we're talking believers, but people in general. And one of the things I think as people, just as people, whether you're saved people or unsaved, what we consider unsaved, most people, and you grow up in life, but most people still don't know how to deal with their humanity. In the church world, it's all spiritual. And if you can't connect that way, sometimes it ain't that practical when it comes to dealing with humanity or your humanity, particularly when you're having suicidal or homicidal thoughts. And this is a place where I think the church has been so spiritual. I know the way I grew up was so spiritual. You didn't talk about natural human things. Everybody lived on a cloud playing a harp. Nobody had problems, you would think, on a Sunday morning. And you didn't know if things were going on in that home till something happened and everybody's in shock. And the other part to this is, and I'm throwing this in here because we got a little ways to go with this discussion, is we pastored from over, I pastored over 30 years personally. Then together we pastored close to 30. It was about almost the 29th year is when I stepped down at the ministry we started here. And I remember we ministered from such a higher spiritual level. We didn't think sometimes, not that we neglected natural things, we just didn't think about it until something happened. And then you're sitting in front of a family, or you're sitting at a service, or in the hospital trying to get a sense of how could this happen. They were a good believer. They were spirit filled. They knew the scriptures, and so on and so on and so forth. When the real reality is, that's not most people's reality. That's them conforming to some type of system so that they can be accepted and loved. And I don't mean to make anybody upset, but ultimately that becomes the truth. And so, as leaders, to be able to, I think that nowadays leaders, we have to probably have maybe be more discerning about people, not just do they a church attendance, but just their well-being in general. And so in that way, I think as leaders, we can help run a little bit of interference to someone that may be in that situation, that don't know how to sort those thoughts off. Because we've dealt with all kind of people. Again, I'm throwing that out here too, because we got a little ways to go here. But I
Oh, we got
think,
a long ways to go.
yeah, we got a long ways to go, and we got what, 6 weeks, 4 weeks now.
No. We still got 6 weeks.
We
We
still
did
got 6 weeks,
8
and so
weeks.
we got a little
Go
ways
ahead,
to go.
Randy. We got time. We're going to do this.
Okay, okay.
At the end of this, I really believe that at the end of this, God will give us things that will have tools that will help people to do what it is that they need to do. I'm not doing this just to do this. I mean, I got better things to do, but I'm concerned about our societies all over the world. But Randy, go ahead.
I really think, just looking back on events and situations, I really think you need to be trained how to intervene with someone. Because, there are times that person who is having suicidal thoughts, that they are so overwhelmed, they cannot hear what you're saying. They're in such pain and hurting.
Yes.
You can't come to them, with the word of the Lord. You can't come to them with a practical application. So the body of Christ, or we as individuals, we need if we're interested in this, we need to be trained to tell people how to recognize when these thoughts are coming to them, and how to fight against them. And once we can provide people with the resources, or what to do to prevent it or overcome it, then they can fight back. Because the problem is that they're at such a vulnerable state that they can't fight. They don't know how to fight back. So what are those realities? My husband had a situation in his family where someone in his family left a suicidal note, left a knife by the papers with the note. And we're running all throughout the city trying to find where this person went. And this person never committed the suicide.
But we're trying to found a note, and the police were looking, and man, it was crazy. And we were like, you hyped up because
right,
you believe that this person is going to go through with it. When in that situation, ultimately, it ended up being a cry for attention.
Right.
And sometimes that's what it is too. It's a cry for attention.
Right.
In our world today, there's so little people really getting the kind of attention that they need. And so a lot of people are I don't know the word for it, but they're, I don't know,
crying for attention.
Crying for attention. They're lovesick.
Yeah.
They're just sick because they don't, something in them is not being answered. That need of I think the two basic needs of people is love and affection. And when you don't, and acceptance and love and affection, and when we don't have that, even if it's amongst our peers, even amongst strangers, sometimes people can draw that from strangers. And when people don't get that and they're starving for that after a while, I think that's could be one of the thoughts. Then what am I here for? Nobody knows I'm
Okay,
here anyway. Uh, yes.
let me ask this. Okay, let me throw this out here. All right, and we are in this. I mean, I have done a lot of suicidal interventions, and in my practice and in training and all of that. But here's one of the things. You know, we talked last week about young kids, and
Yeah.
Randi also spoke about. She spoke about um, the thoughts and all of this. But how are we going to start to have people around children? What are we going to do? Whether it's in the school system, whether it's in the whether it's not literature, because people have put literature out there forever. But I believe that what we need to do, what we're going to have to do, is to find the spiritual answer, to find a heavenly answer for these things, because kids that are 6 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, all of this, we are, they're finding out how to kill, they're finding out how to commit suicide, they're willing to do all of these things. And I really believe that we are underestimating. And if we don't train people how to think at young ages, then what in at old ages, they start to dance around. See, these are some of the things that happen. People start talking about, I'm embarrassed. All right. We
Yeah.
use words, but there's no real thing. I don't know what embarrassed is. I can't be embarrassed. I can't be offended. I can't be put to shame. None of those things. Why is that? Because I don't really care. I can't tell you how much I don't care or what someone else thinks about me. But that's real for me. It did not happen overnight. Our understanding. I sold my body. I sold my everything because I cared what people thought many years ago and stuff, you know. But what I'm saying is this: how are we going to effectively interact with mankind in order to have them to have a self-image rather than a outside inward image, an image from the inside out?
Interesting that you would ask. Go ahead.
I know in the situation with our granddaughter, she came to me and said that to me. She said, Grandma, I want to kill myself. And I said, why do you want to do that? And she said, I don't know. So I took her and I just held her. I says, Grandma loves you. And I said, you are beautiful. And she says, no. I said, yes, you are beautiful. And I began to pray with her and pray over her. And then I went to the bookstore, went to the Dollar Tree, and I got her some little Bible story books just to let her see about creation, let her see that there's a God who loves her, who created her, and was teaching her how to say her prayers. And every time I see her, I grab her, I hold her, I love on her, because I realize, hearing her say that, I realize somewhere in there she's feeling ugly, she's feeling rejected, she's feeling that maybe nobody loves her. So I try to be sensitive to that. And I think when you're dealing with children, I believe that they need to know that they are loved, and they need to be affirmed that they are beautiful, because somebody has told them they were not beautiful, or somebody has said something mean to them. And then some of them may have gotten bullied. You know, I got bullied when I was a kid, but some people have strong minds, and some people, their minds are not as strong as far as being able to resist those thoughts and resist those words that are so unkind and so hurtful that they just take it within. And the more they hear it, the more withdrawn they get, and the more they're listening to these thoughts that I don't matter.
Yeah. How much is that, Meg? Again, just throwing some things out. How much of that can be happen in the womb, where the mother didn't want the child, and sometimes and that negative emotion is passed on to the unborn child? Is that another place that affects that,
Well, of
or
course.
infects that, where that child comes into the world already feeling this disconnection from its own, not just from the world itself, but from its own mommy?
Mhm.
That can, I don't know. Is that something that could be
It's
a real
no,
issue?
it's not just a possibility, it's a reality, okay?
Okay.
This is also the same thing with adoption. This is the same thing with because it's a form of they don't feel like they're seen for who they are. And another thing we're dealing with is the invisible person.
Right.
The invisible person. I am not visible. I have no importance. I have no value. There is no weight to me. And these are things that happen in the womb because you can't see them there.
Right.
Therefore, there is not what it's necessary. There's not the love. There's not the attention. You know, one of the things of it is one of my sons, AJ, there was this young girl in his congregation, and she had this baby. And so he and his wife took her and the baby to start to work it together so that it was not just the baby being given away. In these things, we have to start to, if we're going to assist, we're going to have to get to the depth of what it is that you're just saying, because what has to happen is this, is that we need to help people to see that they are visibly important, visibly valuable, visibly worth something.
Yes.
Mhm.
From that very beginning, because most of the time what it is, it's not about self-esteem. Screw that. It is about self-worth and self-value. How much do I hold? How much weight do I hold? How much weight do I carry
Mhm.
in this? And so I really believe that we're going to come up with, by the time we're finished with this, by the time God is finished with us doing this, that we're going to come up with some answers that are going to be able to help equip people. And if people need us to come someplace or need us to come and assist them and on a continuous basis or whatever it is, we're there to do it. But I'm not satisfied with these young people and all of these other people dying that
Yeah.
don't have to, because they don't see themselves. You can't kill yourself if you see yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because you love yourself enough, and it's about you. It's not about how this is going to affect other people. Because the truth of the matter is, other people, either they care about you, they don't notice you, or they don't care about you because they got their own stuff. And that's just a fact, Jack. And so it's learning, helping people also to learn how to love themselves, but also bringing that affirmation. I remember, I just thought of this title of a book. I remember this is for the church world. I was in Chicago at this mega church, and I went into the library, and there was a book. I never opened the book, but I saw the title. The title got my attention, and the title simply said, "The church should be the last place in the world where people feel alone." And I thought, wow. And it's the truth. But how many people, even believers, feel alone, feel disconnected, feel like they're not seen, they don't matter. Um, I don't know if you remember Joanne. Joanne Ish taught me a principle. She was an elder in our church, and she one thing I learned from her was when she would meet people It was never about her. She would ask them, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your family. And I learned that principle from her. So a lot of times when I meet people for the first time, especially if they're seem like they just need the extra affirmation, tell me about yourself. What have you done? Tell me about your family. Tell me about your life, because it begins to bring affirmation to them, because they're talking about, because now I'm interested in you because you do matter. And sometimes they may not feel that, but if you, even engaging on that level in a conversation can help people begin that don't feel like they matter, feel like that they really do matter.
Go ahead, Randy. I can see you about to say something. She's doing this. I know my friend. Go ahead, baby.
I was just going to say, we have to put tools in people's hands. You know, when I was with my nephew, I knew that I was there for a short period. What could I leave with him that he can continue when I'm not there? So I bought him a Bible. I bought him some books that I felt would really help him to understand his spiritual self and understand the power of God that is able to work through him. Because those books he can read when I'm not there. He can read in his own quiet time. And so we're made of, you know, spirit, soul, and body. So we also have to educate the person about their spiritual state. And because I believe that suicide and depression, that's comes in the family line as well. You know, my mother was she had mass depression. She had a chemical imbalance as well, but it was, the depression was so bad, it was like a cloud over her head. She would have circles under her eyes. She would take off her makeup, you know, and yeah, take off her makeup and everything that made her look feminine. She would toss it aside because this spirit of rejection or this cloud wanted to take away from her. And so he's showing me the time clock over here. But
it is. We're about out of time. I'm looking at this time so fast. Okay, we're going to be back next week when we're here still telling it like it is. We're talking about suicide, depression, you know, invisibility, and all of those things. This is Dr. BJ Baker, Marshall McGee, and Randy McGee saying goodbye. We'll see you next time.
See you.
Still telling it like it is. Bye-bye.